doing something a little different today here on Moto Matters because it's negative 17 outside. Not interested in going riding today. Also, not interested in working in the garage. It's even too cold to go out there. Yeah, it may be cold outside, but it's warm enough in here. I'm still going barefoot. Talking, it's real exciting, right? Here we are, standing here in front of my 1984 CR125. We picked this up a few years ago behind the barn. Not even a barn find. It was a rolling chassis. It had been sitting outside for over a decade, plastic all chalked up, or given a falling apart crate of partial engine parts. We got her done. It runs and rides. And since we finished it, it just sits in the basement. It has actually never been outside. When we did ride it, we rode it in the basement just to prove that it ran and rode. Now I'm standing in front of a PW50. Many of you recognize it. Most of you probably learned how to ride on one of them. It's not the one I grew up with. It has blue plastic on it now, but it's actually a 1981, the original first year for the PW50. The neighbors had it. Pretty well abused. I think they had 7 or 8 kids. So the dad one day brings it down to my dad's house. This is after I was growing up out on my own, kids of my own, and says, I put enough money in it, I can't get it running. Do you want it? Here, you can have it. So my dad said, sure. He gave it to me. I ended up putting a pulse coil on it, a fairly inexpensive part, and had a running bike. So why stop there, right? My kids were little at the time, so I thought, hey, let's tear this thing completely down. So I went down the frame, restored it, rebuilt the engine, and instead of keeping the original beat up plastic, the yellow plastic, I put on blue from 2005. So it made it look like a 2005, which would then match my new at the time, YZ450. We've thought about restoring it back to the original 81 because that looks cool, and the 81 being the first year and all. But the reality of it is, I just can't bring myself to do that. Though it's blue plastic beat up and scraped up, this is how it looked when my kids rode it and learned to ride with it. So I can't bring myself to take the blue plastic off.
Got 3 generations of Carlson boys riding out here together today. Matt's in the lead, then Neil, then Eric.
Nevertheless, I'm very happy to have an original PW50 just to look at, I guess. My dad, however, did restore his original 1981 PW50, took it back to stock look, and it sits in his basement. Here you see me on it with my older brother. It was actually my older brother's first bike. He rode it for a few years, then I rode it for a few years and raced it, my first motocross bike, even though I was way too big for it. And several other people have ridden this bike that had kept it, taught many kids to ride, including all 4 of his grandkids. So it's been a very important part of my family's motorcycle history. And the restoration process, he tried to very carefully peel off the backgrounds and numbers that were on it when I raced it. So this is the very first 43 I had. This would have been mid-late 80s. And you can see the photo, me with the yellow plastic, the Wise hanger, the 43, and my very first trophy. I was back in the old AMA days. I grew up in the time when they just hand out trophies to every kid. You actually had to earn it. Here he is. There it is. My first trophy ever. 1989 Delta Motorsports Park, Delta, Ohio. And while we're talking about trophies that are special and important. Some of you know the importance and the special place Red Bud has in American motocross. I've got down here somewhere a second place trophy from Red Bud and the 30 plus class. But that doesn't mean that much to me. The one that means the most is this plaque right here. It's not my best looking plaque, not by any standard, but of all the trophies I have, this guy right here means the most. That 9th place, 30 plus B class at Red Bud Vet Fest. There are over 50 of us in the class, and I broke the top 10. So riding a Red Bud, they always get a big crowd, always have a full gate. But Vet Fest draws guys from several states. So of all my trophies, the number 1s, 2s, 3s don't really mean that much. That 9th place means a lot to me. Not all these trophies are actually earned by winning. Some of them were earned through pain. Here, my dad made this trophy for me. I broke my arm. It was called a humerus neck fracture. Not funny at all. The humerus bone at the neck, about an inch short of the ball, snapped it off and it flipped up. My arm was hanging down. They had to put pins in it. These guys right here put the pins in it to hold it in place, to hold it up together. So since that was kind of a big injury for my first one in racing, my dad made me a cute little trophy for it. And next to it, buried back behind, just on the shelf, we have my most recent trophy. This sweet carbon fiber titanium trip parts. They're not bike parts, they're me parts. For this broken wrist, I had an internal plate in here. You see the scar where it was? And it was so bad, I actually had this externally on here as well. In addition, were some internal pins going through the wrist at an angle, this way. I'll give you a second here. I'll dig out for you out of my biohazard bag. Here, you can see the plate from the internal. Once I switched to orthopedics, he was blown away with the number of injuries I had. They took the time to fix it, to give me any movement at all. He was surprised they just didn't fuse it in place and call it a day. So, the best doctor I could find around here said I had the best treatment I could possibly get there, to get anything. But this wrist is junk. I don't have very much movement. You can see, got more than I expected I would get, actually. But it's kind of a downside because I just can't go wide open with it. You gotta drop the elbow. So riding form, riding ability, just not there. Just not ever gonna be there. It's kind of neat that I gotta keep the trophies from that. And here, we have a tiny little trophy. This was my first and only ever poker run trophy. I got it riding on the back of my dad's Goldwing when I was, I believe, 12 years old. Here we have my first season championship. It's kind of crazy. Started riding in the 80s and didn't get one of those till 2018. Next to it, we have the original 43 helmet to go with that original 43 bike. Old, outdated, open face helmet. Yes, I'm that old. That's what we rode with. In fact, I remember when my dad brought home the visor. I thought this Yamaha visor was so cool because before that we had rounded visors. The helmet wall, little story history. My mid-90s Bell Moto 6 Thor Special Edition. Fancy, shiny, all custom. Rode with that guy for a long time. The first and nice helmet I had, was real pleased with that. Quit wearing it. The second time I got knocked out, did a step on, step off. I stepped on to my head, put a big flat spot in her up here, and I haven't worn it since. So I replaced it with this guy right here, a Bell Wizard, a lower level, not as high quality, but I couldn't afford a nice helmet at the time, so I've never really liked it. Next to it, we've got an MSR, bumped up to a medium brand helmet, but high quality. It's Snell approved, so get the highest standard, try to protect your head. I wore it for a month. I had it about a month, landed on my face, and broke it. From there, I went to the Troy Lee. I really love this helmet. Honestly, of all my helmets, this guy must probably been my favorite. I like the fit, the design, how it wore. Very pleased with it. But as you can see, it didn't end up very well either. Got knocked out pretty good with that one. In fact, remember arguing with my family if I got knocked out or not. I claimed no, I didn't, and they claimed yes, I did, because they were able to walk, the 10-minute walk to me out there on the track without me moving. From there, we moved over to this bell right here. I got it to match Matt's bell, or close to, so I had matching 18 bikes at the time. We're trying to do everything the same gear and all, but I couldn't get the exact same helmet. This is just a couple years later. This was the helmet I was wearing in my latest accident, and you can see the black spot on the side, and we've epoxied over it, but I was sandwiched between two bikes, and a rear tire ate through the carbon fiber shell. So I epoxied it and thought, hey, it'll be at least strong enough to wear around the yard. I know this video's been kind of lame and boring, but we want to at least get some content out for you. It's just too cold to actually do anything of any fun or any value. So, stay warm and keep riding. Like, share, subscribe. Brah!